Welcome back and thank you for staying with the Sunday edition of All Angles here on eNCA. South African women continue to face many hardships daily, from socio-economic challenges, gender-based violence, single motherhood and the responsibility of financially supporting their households. And the list goes on. What role can public-private partnerships play in alleviating some of these challenges? We have Head of Marketing at Shout It Now, Zonja Penzhorn, and she joins us to discuss this. Zonja, good afternoon to you and thank you so much for joining us. It is exhausting, with all these challenges that South African women have to face, and Shout It Now encouraging us, I guess, to also reach out when you need help, because we've taken on this role that says we can do it all and have it all. Zonja?
Yes, that's right. And at Shout It Now, we focus on HIV and gender-based violence prevention for the youth, especially focused on young women because they are just so disproportionately impacted. And I think the number that I want to start with today is 291. And that is the number of births every day from young girls aged 10 to 19. And we need to ask ourselves the question, why? These young women are really facing financial difficulties, and this is for the basic necessities. And we need to understand if they have no access to finances, and we're sitting with a youth unemployment rate of 60.7% for young people between the ages of 15 and 24, what is these women's only currency?
And Zonja, I also want to touch on not only tradition, but patriarchy, and where in some circumstances that the situation is so dire that girl children are literally prostituted just to sustain or for the survival of the family. And as a nation, this is really an indictment of having failed these vulnerable groups.
Well, often young women are responsible for being the head of the household, so looking after the family in terms of food. They themselves need access to, data, smartphones, just to get them connected, being able to, continue with their education, and also to have access to basic necessities like sanitary wear. So yes, there are, in South Africa and amongst the world, there are gender inequalities, there's societal norms that are accepted. And I think there's also a notion that these young women are being promiscuous, but however, they have no other choice. And often these relationships are with men twice their age.
I was going to say, it's almost like we've normalized it and accepted, or even, swept it under the rug, that this kind of exploitation happens where there are predators who prowl on young innocent girls because they are so desperate. And, these perpetrators get away with it. We call it all sorts of things, teenage pregnancy, where it is statutory rape and there's no punishment. It's just impunity.
I think the first thing, and what you touched on, is the normalization. And we need big brands, aspirational brands, to join us in having one voice and create a new kind of lifestyle where access to sexual and reproductive health services like contraception, like the HIV prevention pill PrEP, is destigmatized. Often these young women are faced with judgment. So I think that is the first thing that we need to do, is normalize the conversation around speaking about sexual reproductive health, empowering these young women to have some sort of financial independence, especially when it comes to necessities that they need. So we need the private sector really to join us to destigmatize and normalize the conversation around that. And then second of all, we need to provide them with opportunities in order for them to be financially independent of their situation.
Yeah, but also how do we create an environment where we call each other out just in not only social circles, but even in the family household? Because more often than not, that culture of silence and secrecy is what perpetuates the exploitation of and abuse of women and children.
It starts with conversations like these, and it starts with platforms where we we collaborate with brands that the youth listen to, that the communities listen to. And if we start opening up the conversation like we are doing today, and we really speak about it openly, and we try to understand her lifestyle and why she is having to do the things that she has to for survival, that's where it starts. And then that, by educating ourselves, by educating our friends, our families, our community, our society, that's how we start driving change. Because if we start talking about the reality, that's where we really create a movement to shout it now.
All right, Zonja, and what kind of brands are you referring to? I mean, top of mind, one would even maybe look at the sin industries, your alcohol, cigarettes, etc., which more often creates an impression for young people, or those that are impressionable, that this is a lifestyle, and because everybody else is doing it. But the consequences is that once your judgment is impaired and you find yourself in the sight of a predator, a sexual predator for that matter, you're likely to be violated, or sexually violated at that.
Yes, of course, we see that every brand has got a lifestyle, every brand has got a consumer set. And I think the assumption is, with the growing youth population, that they will become a bigger workforce, right, with disposable income. So I think it's not just a particular sector or industry. I think it's all brands that has a message of great lifestyle. And it comes with, that is the basics of marketing, right? That is the basics of how to set your brand, aspirations, and have your unique selling point. And I think any brand who includes young women within their consumer set needs to look at her daily journey. And it's not just necessity brands, it's also brands that young women aspire to. So it's a collective of every single brand who has a young woman as their focus audience within their consumer set needs to take up responsibility to join us in the conversation, to destigmatize, normalize, and then also support these young women to become financially independent of their circumstances.
And how open are the brands to add on another social, corporate social investment initiative over and above what the company may be doing already?
Well, I think we'll see after this. I think it's really to have the conversation and to see which brands, will join.
Yeah, because one would say that you've already invested in so much. Sorry, Zonja, if there isn't things around the environment, or even around the destitute, or you might be doing food hampers, or even providing school shoes or bursaries as a corporate citizen. Now, over and above that, now they also have to take the responsibility of protecting or eradicating gender-based violence. Do you think that there would be an uptake, and why?
I do believe together we can make a change. I think, again, like I said in the beginning, there is stigma when a young person is trying to access service, especially when it comes to abuse or violence. There's not always an understanding of what abuse is. It's not just always physical. So I think when we have the conversation and we have a collaboration between the private sector and the public sector, and we all speak in one voice, that's where the change is going to happen. And I do feel like every single brand, every single community member has a responsibility to open up this conversation and to make a change, because we are only going to make a change if we speak openly about it and we face the facts.
What does it mean for you personally to be driving campaigns such as Shout It Now and the protection of the most vulnerable young girls and women?
It is something that we live daily. And we are exhausted. It's not just, we in 16 days of activism, we just had World AIDS Day, and it's something we live 365 days. So this moment is great because we get to put a spotlight on it. But for us, what it really means is we just need the support. We need to stop operating in silos. We need to realize that we focus on the same population group, and we collectively want to healthy society. And if we're managing to help one girl, one family, one community, that is really where the change happens. So this is really an invitation for people to collaborate.
All right, Zonja, thank you so much for your time. As head of marketing at Shout It Now, Zonja Penzhorn, talking about their campaign to try and rope in the private sector as well, big brands, to contribute to the eradication of gender-based violence. On to this story now. Criminologist Professor Khulufelo Rakubu says the police minister's attendance at funerals of victims of crime serve no purpose if the perpetrators are not arrested in the end. This after Minister Bheki